All right, buckle up, because today we're diving deep into For the Man Who Has Everything.
Oh, a classic.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we've got some great excerpts from this academic paper to guide us. Should give us a lot to unpack, about the themes and the impact, not just on Superman, but the whole superhero genre.
It's interesting how this story starts with a simple birthday.
Right, Superman's birthday.
Yeah, Superman's birthday. Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, they all go to the Fortress of Solitude to celebrate. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, you think it's going to be a happy occasion?
Right. But it takes a dark turn pretty quickly.
Yeah, it really does. They find Superman unresponsive with this alien plant attached to him. It's called the Black Mercy.
And the Black Mercy is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, for anyone listening who might not be familiar with the Black Mercy, it's not exactly your average, house plant.
No, not at all. Think of it more like a psychic parasite. It latches onto its victim and it feeds off their deepest desires.
And it doesn't just grant wishes, right?
No, it traps them in this hallucinatory state, a dream world. But it's so real, so perfectly tailored to what they want, they completely lose touch with reality.
And so we're talking about Superman, right? So you have to think, what does he desire? It's probably not money or more power.
Exactly. The Black Mercy taps into something much deeper, more primal even. You got to remember Superman's home planet, Krypton.
Yeah, exploded when he was a baby.
Right. That loss, that longing for a life he could never have, that's what the Black Mercy exploits. It creates this perfect illusion of Krypton.
Where it never exploded.
Right, where Superman grows up with a family and normal Kryptonian life. He's completely oblivious that it's all fake.
It's so sad when you think about it. This thing preying on a wound, he might not even realize it's still there.
That's the thing with the Black Mercy. It's insidious. It's not just escapism. It's like this twisted, agonizing form of wish fulfillment.
And while Superman is trapped in this manufactured bliss, you've got Batman, Robin, and Wonder Woman trying to, pick up the pieces.
Yeah. And they've got a tough job. It's not just about physically getting the Black Mercy off of him.
Right, because you have to fight against the power of his own desires.
Right. And that raises all sorts of questions about free will. Do we always have control over what we want, even if it's, harmful?
Plus, they have to deal with Mongol.
Oh, yeah. Can't forget Mongol.
He's the one behind all of this.
He's the mastermind. And he's not just some random strong guy. He's a cunning warlord. He understands the psychological power of the Black Mercy.
There are so many layers to this story. Like, on the surface, you've got Superman trapped.
Yeah.
But then there's all this other stuff. The nature of desire, the illusion of perfect happiness. How far will we go for the people we care about?
And Mongol's motivations add another layer to it, right? He's not just trying to defeat Superman physically. He's going for something more...
psychological.
Yeah, psychological. He wants to expose Superman's vulnerability, the man beneath the godlike exterior.
Which kind of brings us back to that whole illusion versus reality thing.
Right.
Superman's perfect dream world is threatened by Mongol, by the real world. It makes you think about the trade-offs we make, the sacrifices we might have to make in pursuit of what we want.
Like, is ignorance really bliss if it comes at such a high cost?
Exactly. And you even see this theme reflected in how the other characters react to the Black Mercy. Even Batman, who always seems so in control.
Right. So driven by his mission.
Yeah. Well, he has this moment where the Black Mercy, it reveals something.
A hidden desire, a vulnerability.
Even Batman. I need to hear more about this. What kind of fantasy world does the Black Mercy create for someone like him?
Now that's where things get really interesting. Alan Moore, he really uses the Black Mercy to explore these iconic characters. But before we dive into Batman's desires and, the roles of other key players like Lila Laral, let's take a step back and think about the impact this story's had. I mean, it's considered a landmark for a reason. For the Man Who Has Everything really did change things in the comic book world, I mean. You didn't see this level of psychological depth before.
Yeah, it's like they took these larger-than-life characters and made them...
human.
Yeah, human.
Yep.
And the creative team, Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons, they went on to do some amazing things. Like
Watchmen.
Watchmen, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another one that really pushes the boundaries of the genre.
Definitely. But you wanted to hear about Batman's encounter with the Black Mercy.
Oh, yeah. What does this hidden desire, this vulnerability look like for him? What kind of world does it create?
Well, if it's Kryptonian loss for Superman, for Batman, it's...
Trauma.
Yeah, trauma. The murder of his parents.
That's what set him on the path, to becoming Batman.
Exactly. So in the dream, Bruce Wayne's parents are alive. He has a normal life. No tragedy, no burden of,
Vengeance?
right, vengeance. It's almost hard to picture, isn't it?
Batman without that darkness. It's like, is he even Batman at that point?
That's the thing about this story. It makes us think about those dark desires. Even Batman, the symbol of control, he's reduced to this vulnerable state. It makes you wonder, like, would he even be Batman without that trauma?
It's like his strength comes from his pain.
Yeah, and that's a powerful idea. Like, maybe letting go, even of the things that define us, that can be just as strong as holding on.
That's deep. Speaking of letting go, what about Lila Larrol? In Superman's dream, she's his wife.
Right, and the mother of his child.
But in reality, it's not so simple.
Yeah, their connection's a lot more complicated.
I was wondering about that. Like, why her? Why not some other random Kryptonian?
It is back to Krypton. Lila was an adult when Kal-El was just a baby. She actually helped his parents design the rocket.
The rocket that sent him to Earth.
Yeah. So there's this almost a maternal connection.
Along with this shared history that no one else can really understand.
Right. No one else can offer Superman that link to Kryptos.
So the Black Mercy's giving him this fabricated version of the family he lost.
And in a way, Lila represents this thing that's always out of reach. That connection to Krypton he can never really have.
It's like a bittersweet reminder of the past.
Yeah. Of how even our most painful memories can be tied up with love and longing and, just missing something you can never get back.
And it makes me think about how, for the man who has everything, has been criticized for his portrayal of the women.
Oh, yeah, like Wonder Woman and Supergirl.
Especially them. Like, they don't really get to...
They don't get much agency.
Yeah, Wonder Woman is kind of relegated to a supporting role.
Trying to help Superman.
Yeah, and Supergirl, she's basically unconscious the whole time.
It's a missed opportunity, isn't it?
It feels like it, especially with all the emphasis on Superman's internal struggle. We don't really see the same depth with the women.
It reflects a bigger issue in comics back then.
Like a male-dominated perspective.
Yeah, prioritizing the male characters and not giving the women the same nuance, the same power.
It's a shame. Because Wonder Woman, especially, she's got such a rich history, such a...
complex character.
Yeah, and it's important to acknowledge that...
Definitely. Even with a story that's so groundbreaking in other ways. Like with the themes and the character development,
But even with those flaws, you have to admit, for the man who has everything, it's a landmark.
Absolutely. It showed what superhero comics could be, that they could handle these sophisticated themes, the psychological depth. It wasn't just about...
punching bad guys.
Right, punching bad guys. It was about exploring the human condition, even within, this fantastical world.
And it resonated. I mean, decades later, people are still talking about it.
It's because it humanized Superman in a way that hadn't really been done before. He wasn't just this all-powerful alien anymore.
He had desires, he had vulnerabilities, this longing for connection.
Yeah. It showed that even Superman, the Man of Steel, he's got weaknesses. He struggles with loss, with wanting a life that could never be.
And that's what makes it so powerful, so enduring.
It reminds us that strength isn't just about physical power. It's about facing your vulnerabilities, making those tough choices, valuing the people you have.
All in the face of loss and hardship and everything else life throws at you.
Yeah. And it's incredible how much they packed into one comic book issue.
I know, right? But even with everything we've talked about, it still leaves you with these questions.
Big questions.
Yeah, about what it means to really live a good life.
That's what good storytelling does. It sparks these conversations. It gets you thinking. It stays with you.
Long after you've finished reading.
And speaking of questions, remember that thought-provoking question I mentioned? The one the story leaves us with? Well, we're going to get to that in just a minute. But first, let's take a step back and think about what we've learned so far in our deep dive into For the Man Who Has Everything.
Okay, so we spent some time with For the Man Who Has Everything. We've talked about the plot, the themes, the characters, even some of the criticisms,
It's been a good discussion.
It really has. And the impact this story's had, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, published back in '85, and it still resonates with people today. Must have hit a nerve,
Definitely. So what are those takeaways? What makes it so enduring?
Well, it definitely challenges our assumptions about happiness. We tend to think if we just get everything we want, then we'll be, completely fulfilled.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Right. But for the man who has everything, says maybe not. Maybe that kind of wish fulfillment, it can actually be a trap. It disconnects you from reality, from the things that really matter.
So it's not about living in a fantasy. It's about appreciating
Real world.
Yeah, the real world, with all its complexities and challenges and everything.
And part of that is recognizing the people in our lives. Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman, they're not just there to fight bad guys, they're there for Superman.
They represent that loyalty.
Yeah, and the power of friendship, the idea that the people who really care about you, they'll fight for you, even when you're, lost.
And it's not just about having people to pull you back. It's also about recognizing your own, weaknesses. Superman, he wants that life on Krypton so badly, the family he never had. And it shows a different side of him.
Makes him relatable.
Yeah, like even Superman has these deep-seated longings, these vulnerabilities.
It reminds us that even the people we think of as, godlike, they have their own struggles.
Their own losses, their own desires.
Right.
This story is so much more than just the typical superhero adventure. It's about the human condition, desire, illusion versus reality, the choices we make.
Big themes.
Yeah. And they use the superhero genre to explore it all.
I think that's why it works so well, why it speaks to people even now.
It's timeless.
And we can't forget the art.
The writing, the art.
Yeah, Alan Moore's writing, it creates this feeling of claustrophobia in Superman's dream world. And then you contrast that with, the harsh reality of Mongol's ship.
And Dave Gibbons' art just adds to it,
Yeah.
You can see Superman's inner turmoil.
That struggle between giving into the fantasy and facing the truth.
It's some powerful stuff. You mentioned earlier that the story ends with a question for the listener. What is it?
If you were exposed to the Black Mercy, what kind of dream world would it create for you? And would you be able to let go?
That's a tough one. Makes you really think about what you want, what's important to you.
Would you sacrifice everything, your connections, your purpose, even your sense of self, just to stay in that world?
For the man who has everything, it doesn't give you the answers.
It just gives you the questions.
And maybe that's the point,
Yeah.
to leave you thinking about these things, the nature of desire,
Yeah.
what we're willing to sacrifice for what we think will make us happy.
Deep stuff.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into For the Man Who Has Everything. Hopefully you've gained a new appreciation for it.
Yeah, for the complexities, the artistry, the lasting impact. It's classic for a reason.
And maybe it's even given you something to think about. What would your Black Mercy dream be? Would you be strong enough to let it go?
Until next time.